My name is James Cameron. No, not this James Cameron, this James Cameron. I grew up in Coney Island, Brooklyn, New York. Oh my goodness, what a time it was. I now live in Virginia, and over the last 15 years, I've been portraying an 18th century man of color by the name of John Rollison. I also worked in radio broadcasting for over 15 years. I also played briefly, very briefly, in the NBA. It all started when I was 13 years old. Yes, that's me at 13. I was a handsome individual, wasn't I? But before all of that, I had another passion. I loved Rolls-Royces. Well, a few years ago, I accomplished my dream. I purchased a 1985 Rolls-Royce Silver Spur. And that's where the nightmare began. But it was through trial and error that I discovered that there was a way to actually purchase these cars and maintain them that could save the buyer of future cars like this thousands of dollars. Now that is the sound of power. Let's take a trip. Come on, come along with me. I have now taken that knowledge and will now share it with you. My name is James Cameron, and I want to welcome you to the Rolls-Royce and Bentley University Buyer's Guide. Let's start class. Well, class, I want to introduce you to a person who I met about 6 weeks ago now.
I'm Josh Wicks, owners of Wicks Rods Kustoms, located here at 5612 Moortown Road, here in Williamsburg, Virginia. You can find me on Facebook or Instagram at Wicks Kustoms. Today we got a 1985 Rolls-Royce Silver Spur. We're going to get it on the rack here. We're going to look it over, check for oil leaks, any issues in the suspension, braking system, stuff like that.
I found out about him actually from another person, and this is how that happens, who sells tires right down the way. And of course, that's Rodney's, and you will meet him eventually. He put the tires on my Rolls. And I said, well, Rodney, do you know of anyone who could possibly work on a Rolls-Royce? And he said, sure, Josh, right down the way. Just tell him I told you. And sure enough, I met Josh. It's been about now 5 to 6 weeks. Yep. He told me, which was a good thing and a bad thing at the same time, that he's been in business here at this location for about 3.5 years. I have had my 85 Silver Spur for 3 years, dealing with different mechanics, and you heard me go to Gloucester. I still do, but for all intents and purposes, I have found my mechanic who can literally, because we're going to show you some of the other work that he does, take this car apart and put it back together. So the most important thing that you can have before you even think about buying a Rolls-Royce or Bentley motor car, you better have your mechanic lined up, which is one of the things that I did not do. I did not have a mechanic lined up. What I did, I wanted this car more than anything else in the world. As the opening of my show tells you, I have wanted to have a Rolls-Royce and Bentley since I was 13. So the mechanic was at the end, not at the beginning. But I'm telling you that before you get a Rolls-Royce or Bentley, you make sure that you have your mechanic or mechanics lined up. It'll save you a lot of time and a lot of angst. Now, what we're going to do today, we're going to talk about some of the work that he's getting ready to do on the car, because it started smoking a little bit. And we're also going to take off the actual front panel, the wood panel. You met Susan Price, and Susan Price said that the dash was kind of okay, but in a while it was going to start cracking and peeling. And the sooner we got that done, it would be better. So we've decided that what we're going to do is to do that. So what I want to do is let Josh take you through the pace and tell you how he's going to take off that dash.
Alright, so James brought it in because there were some issues of smoking and some oil leaks that he had noticed on it. The major one I noticed is in the hydraulic system. So this fitting down here, the hydraulic system runs two lines up towards the motor. There's one that comes into the back side of the intake here. It runs through the bottom side of the intake and out the front. It's part of like a cooling system for the hydraulic fluid, so because as it gets worked, as it's riding down the road and the shocks are moving up and down, that oil and stuff like that gets worked around and gets heat filled into it. This is a way to kind of regulate and maintain the temperature of it, as along with maintaining and regulating the temperature of the intake manifold. Well, somebody had previously repaired it, and there's a fitting on there, and the fitting was leaking from there. So I pulled it off to inspect it and found that it's cracked. So then that fitting needs to be replaced, and then the line needs to be remade for it, just because it was an older steel line on it, and I'd rather replace it with a copper nickel line. It lasts a lot longer, and you won't have any issues of leaks through that anymore. So that's what we're going to try to take care of and get fixed up for him today. So we're going to rebuild this line itself out of this copper nickel line, and then we're going to source a new fitting here, reflare it, and install it on this line. So this will be the best solution for him right now. Highlighting this transmission leak here. You see there's drips on the front here. It's dripping right onto the exhaust, which transmission fluid will smoke a lot, and at certain temperatures it will become flammable. You can see it's got a cork gasket here, and it's starting to weep out of this. So this is the main thing I would suggest it's going to cause the leak here, is replacing this gasket here. If it was more, there's some here forward which could tell that it's the input seal for the torque converter, but most of it seems to be back in here. I'm going to go with it's more than likely the pan gasket, or this seal here. So this is where I would start with, clean this up and then see where it's coming from there. Alright, so we're going to take the dash panel off the Rolls-Royce today. There's a couple of knobs here, vent knobs, that got 1/16 Allen head screws that are going to have to come out. You're going to want to pull those knobs off first. And then there's going to be there's 3 face screws on the panel itself to take off that releases the panel. And then there's 2 sections right behind the steering wheel here that have 2 screws holding them in, that kind of hold the bottom edge of that dash panel in. You're going to want to loosen those screws up a little ways so they can kind of hang down, and then you can slip the panel all the way out, and then it's ready to take to the shop to get fixed.